There it is. He timed it right. Counting
to explode with the left. Oh, and that right, but Davis took off some of the steam of the punch, but still.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
And now it's time for another installment of what has fast become the most popular segment here on the channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail!
A guy who goes by The Creator responded to my recent video about Gervonta Davis's deal being separate from the upcoming PBC DAZN deal, that his fights would have to be negotiated separately. According to The Creator, Tank is a cash cow, and he does numbers.
No, he doesn't.
Physical tickets and pay-per-view. A separate deal makes sense right now, unless he comes back washed. To which Stop Motion MMA responded, his pay-per-view numbers are not that good. If they were, Showtime would have never left boxing.
To which The Creator responded, they announce his pay-per-view buys every fight. A lot of broadcasters left boxing, including ESPN. Nothing to do with Tank.
They didn't announce his pay-per-view numbers for either the Frank Martin fight or the Lamont Roach fight following the Ryan Garcia fight, so they don't actually announce his numbers every fight, not for the last two. And the reason they probably didn't is because the last two pay-per-views he did were a far cry from the Ryan Garcia fight. That you did do a little over 1 million with Ryan, and after that, your numbers nosedive because you're not as big a draw as they pretend you are.
Do you think that if he would have did 500,000 with Frank or 500,000 with Lamont, they wouldn't have announced it? We wouldn't have heard about it by now?
It doesn't even have to be 500,000. If he would have done 300 or better, 300,000 with Lamont or Frank, don't you think we would have heard about it? They spent enough time bragging about his abysmal numbers that were just north of 200,000, to where if he would have did 300,000, they would have talked about it, but they didn't.
If Tank is a cash cow, like this guy says, how come he's never on the Forbes list or the Sportico list for the highest paid boxers in the sport? You know, like Floyd Mayweather was when he was around in his heyday. He was always on the Forbes list, but Gervonta?
They publish those things every year, and the vast majority of the time, Gervonta Davis isn't on there. The only time I can remember that he was even on the list, not even in the top spot, but listed, was following the Ryan Garcia fight. But in the years before that fight, and the years after that fight, he wasn't there. He's still not there.
He was only ever there once, right after the Garcia fight. Then after that, he disappeared. So how could that be the case if he's a cash cow, like The Creator says? Maybe it's because he's not a cash cow, and his celebrity, his marquee value, has always been overstated. People are calling this guy a cash cow for typically doing just north of 200,000 buys? What are you doing? Setting the bar lower and lower to accommodate him?
You must be, because those are not good numbers, nor have they ever been. If they were, Showtime would have never left the sport of boxing, just like Stop Motion MMA said.
When Chris McCarthy, the head honcho over there at Paramount, decided to pull the plug on boxing and other content on Showtime, he made it clear it was due to low ratings, that anything delivering less than 10% of the overall viewership is getting the axe. That included the PBC.
More than 4 years after Paramount made that decision, I still have to hold people's hands as to why that happened, because they don't want to admit the PBC fucked up. Tank Davis ain't that big a draw. He's got the potential to be if he had the right dance partners, but so often, he doesn't.
If he were fighting a Shakur Stevenson instead of a Frank Martin or a Lamont Roach, if he had been fighting a Devin Haney instead of them, those pay-per-views likely would have done better at the box office.
He never had a shortage of good dance partners.
The whole time he was there at 130 pounds, reigning as a champion with Vasyl Lomachenko alongside him, that was literally the biggest fight to make at 130. But what did Floyd say? They weren't in a rush to do it, they're not in a hurry, and Vasyl Lomachenko's gonna have to wait, to the point that it never happened.
He never had a shortage of dance partners.
And it was more of the same when they were both at 135. Gervonta Davis waits good up until the guy's about to retire to decide that he wanted to fight him. By then it was too late.
But that whole time, there were other fights that he chose not to have, like a fight with Teofimo, or George Kambosos that beat him, or Devin Haney who beat him.
He never had a shortage of dance partners anywhere that he fought. He could have fought Shakur.
And I promise you that if he had, that fight would have performed better at the box office than the Leo Santa Cruz pay-per-view, the Hector Luis Garcia pay-per-view, Isaac Cruz, Rolly Romero, Mario Barrios, Frank Martin, Lamont Roach.
It's almost like he makes it a point to fight these nobodies because they're less expensive than fighting name-brand opponents. It's easier to B-side them and offer them peanuts on the dollar.
Easier to beat him, too.
So that when he fights these nobodies and does abysmal numbers in the process, what his fans like to do is make it everybody else's fault. It's Devin's fault, and Shakur's fault, and Tio's fault, and Loma's fault.
But it's everybody else's fault that these fights don't happen.
But he's the cash cow. He's the one who's supposed to be in control, so the onus to make all of these fights happen is more on him than it is on them. The way they work it out, they give him a pass for not fighting name-brand opponents, real competition, and glorify his abysmal pay-per-view numbers as if 200,000 buys was ever the earmark of a real box office attraction.
Add another 100,000.
Then maybe, because the way I see it, and for as long as I've been watching boxing, if you can't do at least 300,000 buys with a fight on pay-per-view, then it may as well not be a pay-per-view.
You might as well have not done it as a box office fight. Do it as a regular fight so that you can bring in views that way, because every time you do a pay-per-view, you sacrifice a sizable portion of the audience.
Since only a small percentage of them are going to pay the cover charge, you're hoping that it's enough that you can make some money, but as many times as Tank has been on pay-per-view, he only ever did real numbers once.
That doesn't make him a cash cow.
The rest of those other fights he had would have better serviced the PBC and Showtime as their broadcaster as regular fights as part of a regular schedule, and I promise you, millions upon millions of people would have watched them.
If they didn't cost anything extra.
And on the back of that might have been enough to salvage PBC's relationship with Showtime. They might not have got the axe if the numbers were better, since no broadcaster is going to give content the boot that's bringing them numbers. The fact of the matter is, the PBC wasn't.
What do you think Chris McCarthy meant by underperforming content?
You need somebody to spell that out for you. Tank Davis is not a cash cow. Can he sell some tickets? Perhaps, but he's not a big box office attraction. He's not ranked among the highest earners in the sport, lists that are published annually that he's regularly not on.
He's internet famous the way a social media influencer is internet famous, but that doesn't always translate into real world dollars.
Just because the internet is talking, the internet is free.
I mean, Creator, how many of his fights have you bought? Because he's been on pay-per-view like 7 or 8 times.
Use yourself as an example.
I'm looking forward to it. So we got a lot of good fights that are happening. We got a guy who's not happening, who's not going to be fighting anytime soon, and that's Tank Davis. So he's another guy who's been mentioned with all of these guys. He's been calling everybody out. Last Friday on Twitter, he was calling out, I believe, Haney, Shakur, even Floyd Mayweather on social media is calling him out. But according to Mike Coppinger and The Ring, he spoke with Bill Haney, and he was told directly by PBC boss Al Heyman that Davis won't be ready until early 2027. So all that
Chris,
talk. Yeah.
Let me tell you guys. You mentioned everybody he called out. That's why I'm not surprised that they just announced that he won't be ready to next year. And what's all this talk about? What's all this? Oh, I'm ready for this. If you're not ready to fight for next year, that means you have issues. You have problems.
That's why he was calling them out.
Yeah. He stayed in the media.
One person that you guys don't even know, and that's where it's funny to me. You know who else he called out, and but he didn't put it on social media. But we have the message, the message he said. He called out Bam.
He called out Bam.
I'm telling you guys.
Anyway, it was too big for him, so he went for Bam.
He called out Bam, and he says, "I want to fight you next. I'm gonna talk to Al Heyman to make that fight happen." You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. There's
so you got inside. You got inside.
Yeah.
You got inside
He
info.
was blowing out the other guys publicly because he knew it was going to make the fight anyway because he wasn't going to be right. But privately, he was hoping he was going to get Bam. Was much smaller.
Well, if he called out Bam publicly, he would have got torched. So I think
exactly.
But, I mean, I guess Inoue was too big for him. Remember a few years ago they were talking about him Inoue.
True.
He jumped right over Inoue.
This is like when you really don't want to fight but you make like you want to fight, so you get behind your boy.
Hold me back, bro.
tell your boy to hold you back,
Hold
but
me back.
meantime you're really not trying to fight. And then if your boy doesn't hold you back, you're like, oh, I was only kidding.
Well, that's the.
It's pretty fucking pathetic is what it is, but I don't put it past Gervonta Davis.
How many times did you hear Gervonta Davis's fans try to talk up an Inoue fight, knowing how much weight there was between them, that disparity, that him potentially calling out Bam Rodriguez behind the scenes is right up his alley, and it's pretty pathetic.
Why would Robert Garcia lie about something like that?
Why would he make that up?
And why would Gervonta Davis be looking at a guy who just had his first fight at 122 pounds when Gervonta, for 5 or 6 years, has been up there at 135? What is he doing? Looking for low-hanging fruit. Fighters that are somewhat known, somewhat popular, but still small enough that he can beat them. Because he's been bringing up fighters for years. When he was at 130, he brought up Jesus Cuellar from 126 up to 130. Did the same with Hugo Ruiz at 135.
He brought up both Hector Luis Garcia and Levant Roach.
There are enough people at 135 pounds that he shouldn't have been looking at 130 for opponents, but that's what he does. He's always looking for some sort of an advantage to maintain this illusion that he's this big puncher, he's this great fighter. When he's not bringing up smaller fighters, he's weakening fighters with weight stipulations. Everything about this guy is a mirage.
He ought to be ashamed of himself, because Bam is a really little guy. But that's the thing about Gervonta and his supporters. They have no shame. It's not dissimilar from what you see with Clarissa, who regularly targets smaller women. Noticeably smaller women, but she at least has barren weight classes as an excuse to do it. Gervonta's got no reason to be looking south of lightweight for opposition. There are plenty of people there, plenty of people at 140. Is he scared to move up?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah.
Here you have a guy who's supposed to be better than Inoue, supposed to be better than Bam, than Devin, than Shakur, where all these guys have been champions at more weights than him. He's been at lightweight for a long time.
Shakur's been a champion at 126, at 130, at 135, now at 140. He's at his fourth weight, while Gervonta is still at his second.
Devin was a champion at 135, at 140. Currently, he's a champion at 147. He's on his third weight, but Gervonta is still on his second. And he's supposed to be better? Better how? Better why?
Better at what? Forcing his opponents to agree to weight stipulations that handicap them?
Near as I can tell, his power may be the product of clever matchmaking and weight stipulations. It might all be a mirage, like his marquee value.
All made up.
He's been spending a lot of time on the internet, saying a lot of this and that about a lot of people, knowing that he's not even going to come back this year. That surmises him accurately.
Like a fucking teenager.
Those Twitter fingers. He spends a lot more time on Twitter than he does in a boxing ring, in a boxing gym. That's all he ever does these days, is tweet about people, about how he's supposed to be better. Better at what?
I blame the American media and the content creators, because they were the ones who were supposed to pressure him and hold his feet to the fire to fight more of his contemporaries, not just Ryan, who everybody knew he was going to beat.
The other guys too. You let this butterball run around calling himself the face of boxing for doing what? 200,000 pay-per-view buys on average?
Jesus Christ, Canelo sold well over that with Edgar Berlanga.
I don't expect him to do much of anything new upon his return, if he does return. I think the ship has sailed for a lot of those fights, because I can't really see those guys agreeing to weight stipulations that are going to handicap them.
Over to two fighters who have since moved up and moved on from the lightweight division where Gervonta is still there. Teofimo Lopez will box circles around Romero. His father sounds certain. As first reported by The Ring, Lopez is negotiating a welterweight matchup against Romero, the division's WBA belt holder.
Belt holder because he's not a real champion.
Nothing has been finalized just yet, but the two sides are inching closer as August 22nd in Las Vegas is being targeted. If things continue to go smoothly, Lopez Sr. knows exactly how things will play out. My son is gonna box the shit out of Rolly, he told The Ring. My son is a pure boxer.
Oh, he's not.
Rolly has some power, but he won't be able to touch my son. Just watch.
Theo's not a pure boxer, he's a boxer-puncher. He can box a bit and punch a bit, but he's not a sugarfoot fighter like, say, Devin or Shakur.
The former two-division champion looks like a smooth and complete fighter, but in his last appearance, he laid an egg. The 28-year-old was dominated in late January at New York's MSG against Shakur Stevenson via a wide UD. He also lost his Ring Magazine and WBO titles.
Instead of attempting to regain his championship status at 140, Lopez is moving up in weight. Waiting for him will be Romero. Romero, 30, has been sidelined. Since scoring an upset win over Brian Garcia last year, he was hoping to face Devin Haney in a unification, but talks fell apart. Lopez becoming a three-weight world champion, more than enough motivation to face Romero. His father can't wait. I never tell my son to go for the knockout.
But tell your son to go for the knockout. I literally see you doing that in his corner all the time.
We all do.
You gotta hit him, bro! Knock him the fuck out!
Every time he knocked someone out, it came naturally. So it's the same thing for this fight. I'm not gonna tell him to go for the knockout, just go out there and outbox him. My son can make it look easy. Why is Lopez Sr. so confident? Likely because Lopez is not in unfamiliar territory with Rolly. I've no doubts that they've sparred before, many times, and Teofimo likely dominated.
If Teofimo Lopez Sr. seems to have a chip on his shoulder ahead of this fight, it's because of that.
And because Rolly Romero, as a professional, has been knocked out 2 times already. Once by Gervonta Davis at lightweight, then again by Isaac Cruz at super lightweight.
Theo's not worried that Rolly's gonna do to his son what he did to Ryan?
No, because he was only able to do that to Ryan because Ryan was coming off a year layoff due to that doping suspension, and he was off the dope. He was off the sauce. Then he jumped back on it for the Barrios fight.
That's what I think. That's why I think Rolly won.
And that's why I think Teofimo Lopez Sr. isn't worried about it. I myself like Teofimo's chances against Rolly, in spite of how flawed he's been looking in recent years, blowing hot and cold, on again, off again. Stylistically, I think that's what tells the story.
The styles of the fighters. To beat Teofimo Lopez, you need to beat those feet, box him up, and stay behind a jab. Make him come to you, like Sandor Martin did or Shakur Stevenson more recently. That's what really makes Teofimo look bad, and that's not necessarily how Rolly fights.
I mean, do I really need to say this? That Rolly does not box on the level of a Shakur Stevenson? I thought that was obvious.
There are 2 X factors ahead of this fight. 2 primarily. Rolly's power, because he does look to be a more concussive puncher than Teofimo at these higher weights.
He is a bit bigger than Teofimo, more adequately suited to campaign as a welter than Teo. And there is also Teo's headspace.
Because that kid's head is a bag of cats.
Thinks he's some kind of fucking philosopher whenever things are going sideways. He turns into Lao Tzu.
Just win the fucking boxing match, right, Confucius?
And I think that he can. If he's in the right headspace, he can derive some confidence from the fact that he's not in unfamiliar territory. He's been in there with Rolly before, albeit in a gym setting, but he knows this guy.
Knows how to read him. He can maybe win a decision. Maybe he wins the fight. Maybe he knocks him out. Because he knows him.
It's a little bit hard to trust Teofimo Lopez these days. He's not the young dynamo that he used to be over 5 years ago at lightweight, but I trust him enough to beat Rolly Romero.
Just enough.